Welcome back to the FanSpeak Network and another episode of Sibling Showdown, the Best Ball Live Draft Edition. That's right. This is a little bit of a lunchtime live draft. Of course, every week we are going to be doing 4 live drafts here on the FanSpeak Network. So be sure to check out the FanSpeak Network by subscribing. You'll know when we go live. And of course, like this episode, we really appreciate it. So, I am, of course, joined by my brother, Steve, and we are going to get into kind of what we're seeing on BBM in just 1 second. All right, Steve, that's right. We are here for our second live draft, not yours and I's total, but our second together of a BBM 5 live draft. And again, FanSpeak Network, we're going to be doing 4 live drafts every week. So please check that out on the channel. We're going to have one with Steve and I, usually Wednesday lunchtime. You're going to have one on Tuesdays, usually with Tyler and Spread around, a little happy hour after work. And then you got Thursday evenings with Andrew and Justin around 9. And then I'll be doing Friday Friends of Best Ball. So lots of live drafts and lots of strategy shows coming your way. Also be sure to check out the fanspeak.com. We're going to have a ton of content over there. Several articles every week. I just got up 2 articles about what I did wrong, what I did right last year. And, so be sure to check that out. We're going to have a lot of great content. So now let me go ahead and say hi to my sibling, my brother, Steve. Steve, how are you doing? And how are the BBM 5 streets going for you?
Doing well. And, Underdog is just releasing stuff left and right. They had the, what was it? The little one last week, and then they just released a couple of tournaments today. So, we haven't even gotten to the schedule release, and they already filled the one last week. I can't even remember the name of it. And the Schnauzer, mini Schnauzer
filled immediately. Yeah.
And that was only a 20 max, so it just shows how quickly. But yeah, they released the first puppy, the golden, which is much nicer than the golden last year. I believe was like a winner take all.
Advance rates on the golden are awesome. It's a single entry, and I love it.
Single entry, $10. Really great advance rates.
Actually, I'll bring over.
So and then Chihuahua. So it's like gives you options as they have this massive BBM 5 going. And of course, the big dog's still out there in the Eliminator. So yeah, just so many options. However you want to run it, and that's what's really showing the growth and excitement of best ball.
Yeah, and what's beautiful, the growth and excitement of best ball, of how many tournaments are just filling. But also, let's talk about just how amazing Underdog is as a company. They totally listen to their customers and their users. Everybody kind of said they wanted a flatter payout even for the lotto, and they did that for BBM 5. They said, they wanted lots of variety and different types of tournaments. They do that. They bring it out. And to your point, they're bringing out tournaments each week. But what they're also doing is, if you follow at Underdog with Drafts, they give you kind of a preview schedule. So you kind of know what's coming up. And I really like that because, hey, I'm still on a budget. We got to budget our drafts. And so I want to be able to budget and know how many outside of BBM I want to do at X, Y, and Z. And then putting it out ahead of time helps me plan. Like I know I believe it's the golden, as you said, it has a great advance rate. It's you get through your pod, and then it's 1 of 6, 26 person final, top prize 10K, single entry. So I really my focus this year. I know in BBM, you'll hear in the article, you'll see in the articles, you'll hear on the shows, I want to focus on advance rates. I want as many shots to the playoffs for total ROI. That's my focus is advanced race. But as far as contest selection outside of the BBM, I'm really going to focus on what the advance rates are throughout the playoffs. And, is it more, I want to give myself the best chance. So a tournament like that, where it's 1 of 6 in the playoffs to get to finals, I absolutely love it. Steve, any other thoughts before we, of course, get into our BBM 5 draft?
Well, and similar as we talked last week with the BBM, how they Underdog listened to their customers and improved the advance rates. Even another big lotto like the puppy, which has always been, just the smaller version of it, obviously. And, 2 of 12, 2 of 12, 1 of 10. I know they had a bunch of different puppies last year. They were trying different things. I don't think any of them had anything this good. Some I think were like 2 of 12, 1 of 12. But there was one that was like 1 of 18 in the second round.
Yeah, it was like a total gauntlet to make the finals. Absolutely. And while we're talking about how great Underdog is, we should probably let you know that we do have a code. So if you are not on Underdog yet, definitely get on. Now's the time. This thing is just going to the moon, and it is so fun. So you get 100% deposit bonus up to $100, whether that's 4 free BBM5 drafts or whether you want to split up in some of these smaller drafts. That is $100 free as a 100% deposit bonus. So good thing to take advantage of. So Steve, I think with that, I think we need to jump into the BBM5 streets. Are you about ready?
Let's go.
Okay, I love it. Let's get in. No. I'm going to save that for later. I'm going to do that on my own. And Steve and I are going to do like a Sibling Showdown style type draft, but we need to work out some tech issues, make sure before we kind of go against each other. So we are going to be working together today, and I'm entering into the BBM5 right now. And we will see it's filling. There are 6 people to fill. If you happen to be watching and you want to jump in with us, please do. And obviously, if you're watching this on replay, thank you for watching. Again, hit that like and subscribe. And again, check out all our content on Fanspeak. I'll also note as we're waiting, not only are we starting to crank out the articles on fanspeak.com, but Steve will have his rankings up on fanspeak.com later this week. They will be free for the month of May. So take advantage of that and check that out. And just really excited about all the content we have both on fanspeak.com and here on the Fanspeak network. So we are waiting for 6 people, a little slower in the lunchtime hour or late lunchtime hour. I always take my lunch late.
I think it's also with the 3 tournaments launching, people are
good point. Very good
on those. So
good point. Yeah, there's probably plenty of people in the puppy streets and the golden streets, and the Chihuahua was the other one today, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're waiting for 5. So you know what is weird? A weird thing that I've had so far, Steve, is I haven't gotten, and we'll see what we get here. I've kind of, and this is, I'm not complaining, but I haven't gotten many of the 1 spot, but I haven't gotten many of the late, 11, 12 turn. And so I haven't been able to get any of that like Garrett Wilson type exposure. So I'm just telling you, if we have an opportunity for Garrett Wilson, I want it, because I have had no one opportunity yet for that. And of course, I'm watching how many drafts I'm doing. Of note, I'm sure if you're watching this, you're a sicko like us, and you know that the NFL schedule release is next Wednesday, the 15th, I believe. So, I'm trying to pace myself until then, until we know the bye weeks. Because if you read my article about wanting to have a best advance rate, and if you watched our show about wanting to have the best advance rate and the things we're going to do to try to do that, paying attention to bye weeks is a biggie. And so I'm really kind of tempering myself. And I think a lot of people are tempering themselves on how many drafts they're ripping right now until the schedule comes out. But schedule comes out next Wednesday. We will have a lot of content for that, both on the site and of course here on the channel, live drafts talking about, but also strategies about, of course, bye weeks, what teams maybe stack well together. Of course, playoffs, week 17, but not just week 17. We want to get to that sweet week 16 and check out some correlation for that, because, you get paid off to make the finals this year. So I really want to pay attention to the entire playoff schedule as a whole. So there's going to be a lot to really dig into as the playoff schedule. Any thoughts on the schedule release, Steve, as we're waiting?
Well, just real quick, I'm in the same boat. I haven't really gotten that 11-12 turn since this, in the big board, I get it plenty, but
right.
And what's interesting is that was the nuts last year. You won CD Lamb and Monra. That's how you won.
Yeah. The BBM win. I mean, I think that a lot of people that advanced and did well in finals, but I believe the winner had at least some.
They had I don't know if it was 11 or 12, but they had those 2 receivers,
correct,
and the Monra in the first 2 rounds. So, and just a lot of winners across the board. I mean, those are 2 of the top 5 receivers on overall, and and obviously Dak Prescott led the league in touchdowns, for as many people who wanted to be down on him last year. That's the spot I'm hoping to get more of, because like you said, that Garrett Wilson, some of those other guys sitting there at that turn are very, very intriguing. But yeah, in terms of the schedule release, Definitely excited to see. Always excited to see the NFL teams, some of the better ones with their social media departments.
Yeah, someone
Um,
crush it. Yeah. Who was your favorite last year? You liked
I like the
oh,
Chargers. Yeah.
we got Spread in the chat. Thank you for joining us, Spread. Yeah, your Chargers, that was like that anime stuff,
Yeah, the
right?
last 2 years they've just totally dunked on every team that they've faced, and do it in an anime way, but just find like small little nuggets to
My,
needle
fa-
other
my
teams.
my favorite was the Titans on Broadway last year.
Yeah, it's like
Asking,
jaywalking. Yeah.
people, yeah, like a jaywalking. Yeah, that was great. That was my favorite by far. Okay, we are starting or waiting to start. Let's see what pick we get. Do we get in an 11 and 12 turn? Oh, I think we might. I
We
don't
did.
see it. We got it.
We
Oh,
got
thank
the turn.
goodness. So, we put it into the universe, Steve, and we got our wish. You and I
Yep.
in BBM yet? I think I've had one spot, and I've had a lot in the like 2 through 7 range. No complaints. I mean, you're getting studs,
Yeah.
absolute studs up there. But sometimes that 11, 12 turn, you can get some sweet goodness like last year. So I'm telling you, if Garrett Wilson is there, I'm taking him. I'm going to overrule you, but I know I wouldn't have to overrule you much because I know you love Garrett Wilson, and obviously with Aaron Rodgers coming back, thoughts on him this year, and thoughts on anybody else that could be there at that 11 and 12 turn, or excuse me,
Yeah.
that 12, 13 turn.
Yeah, I
Excuse
mean,
me.
you just look at Garrett Wilson, and through 2 seasons in the NFL, he's had a handful of games with Joe Flacco and Mike White, but has just really had some of the worst quarterback play
Yeah.
just humanly possible. Even after they turned away from Zach Wilson last year, didn't make it any better, but he still has produced so many big fantasy games in that time frame. So, I mean, even if Aaron Rodgers is not the MVP Aaron Rodgers that we saw, just a couple of years ago,
Right.
I mean, just a league average quarterback play is going to make
It's going to be far better.
Yeah.
Okay, so who else? We know we love Garrett Wilson. We haven't got enough access to Garrett Wilson yet. I'll put up the board. Who else do you like in that like 12, 13 turn?
Yeah, I do like the idea of Jahmyr Gibbs. He's going ADP at 12. So if you get both of them, obviously, if not, I don't mind taking one of the Philly players, AJ Brown or Saquon, just because I think it gives you access to one of the top offenses in the league. And
sure.
And as we talked about before, with no Jason Kelsey, they might not be able to do the the
tush push Philly,
brotherly shove,
brotherly shove, yeah.
Near as often. And when you got a guy like Saquon Barkley, that also changes your dynamic. I mean, he's the big physical back, can get those tougher yards that maybe DeAndre Swift and some of their other backs last couple of years, Gainwell, etc., Boston Scott are not as capable of getting.
Right. Let me just take a break to say it kind of has gone chalk so far. Christian McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson. Actually, usually it goes Chase over Jefferson, but receivers here, Jefferson, Chase, Amon-Ra, and then Bijan at 7. Also have to point out, Spread is in the chat. Check out the show that he and Tyler did yesterday. They'll be covering the DraftKings side of best ball, and they covered it very well yesterday in a live draft yesterday. Check that out on the channel, but check them out every Tuesday at 4 o'clock with a live DraftKings draft. And Spread and Tyler are going to be on with me this Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern for Friends of Best Ball, and they'll get in the underdog streets with me. So that is fun. So I love some Breece Hall too. Speaking of the Jets, he went 8 and then Puka goes 9. Let's take a look at the board, Steve. So to your point, AJ Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs. I understand Marvin Harrison's going to be a stud, but boy, do you think that's going to like depress a little bit as the draft season goes on? Okay, so we're on the clock. Gibbs went, and unfortunately, Garrett Wilson went. Oh, I'm so depressed. So we're stuck with the two, not stuck, but we have the 2 Philly. I really wanted my Garrett Wilson share. Steve, do we go both Philly, or do you want to like take another?
I actually say go both Philly, and
you say just take the Philly.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about like correlating just teams, and there's nothing, certainly, especially the teams you want to correlate are good offenses. So that certainly is the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's an expensive offense. I mean, my favorite kind of offenses to hammer are like the good offenses, but we're kind of getting a little bit of a deal or discount on at least some of the players. Not so much with Philly, but obviously let's see what we can see where Hertz is going then and see if he comes back to us. But, you know, even if he doesn't, even if he doesn't, you know, that's the thing. I wrote about, as we have a break here and I'll leave the board up, I just want to talk about the 2 articles I wrote. I wrote an article about what I did wrong, which there was plenty, and what I want to not do as much of this year, and what I did right and what I want to keep doing. And one of the things that I did right is, well, 2 things that I just did here is, number one, even in the 0RB era of 2 years in a row, 0RB has been incredibly successful. I still had a lot of success of the teams that, you know, advanced and then advanced far in playoffs. They were hero RB. Most of them were hero RB builds anchored by Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall. And I'm talking at least one in the top 3, Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, you know, so there was a couple more I'm forgetting of. Derrick Henry, actually, you know, for as much as people want to put him down, say he's old and that kind of stuff, he's still Derrick Henry and got, you know, plenty of touchdowns last year. And so he was a good anchor RB, maybe not worth his price, but you get my point. The anchor RP worked for me. So I'm especially going to lean into it. I know Peter Overzet did a great video about kind of, you know, how to draft different styles each month. And, you know, I think, as he mentioned, you know, a good time to hammer the 0RB is when you know more about those kind of backup running backs in August and early September. And so late July, August, early September is when I'll hammer more 0RB. So I'm really going to lean into the anchor RB. That's number one. Number 2 is the team correlation, just stacking up good teams. And yes, I'd like to get a little bit more of a discount on it, but stacking up good offenses and not feeling like it has to be quarterback and like 2 or 3 receivers. My favorite stack is actually quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, because you kind of spread out. Usually you spread out the draft capital, number one, and you can kind of ping pong different weeks as far as like through the season, and especially in playoffs, off the different positions. So I really like it. I'd much rather do that. As you know, last year we'd see, for instance, with the Chiefs, people would want to stack the Chiefs and they're drafting like the 6th receiver on the Chiefs or 5th receiver. And it's like, come on, I don't think that's a winning strategy. So I really think, you know, I'd much rather stack with the running back or tight end as opposed to like a 4th or 5th receiver on a team. Thoughts on that? And then we'll start queuing up some guys.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And unfortunately, the guy took Hurts.
Jalen Hurts went early.
His ADP is 37. It should have hit, but I just seen him go early almost every time.
Yeah. So he is the first quarterback off the board. Yeah. At 25. So.
But, you know, I mean, that shouldn't deter us because we have 2 major pieces from one of the top offenses. We're going to get, we're not going to get the Hurts rushing touchdowns and, of course, like the Devonta touchdowns, but it's a very condensed offense. And, you know, they're going to score a lot and put up a lot of yards. So I'm still very happy with that.
Yeah, and I know that I heard the story. The guy that won BBM4 last year had 2 stacks sniped. Like, don't get mad when your stack gets sniped. Just be happy that you stacked other parts of that team. I love that we stacked AJ Brown and Saquon. Did we want Hurts? Yes. You got sniped. No big deal. We will find 3 other stacks. And that brings me to my other point, Steve, which I know I hammer this ad nauseum, but part of what I wrote about and what I did right and what I want to continue, 3 quarterback builds. I'll talk about more after our pick because we need to queue it up, but especially before the bye, 3 quarterback builds, I think are key. We'll be at 36 and 37, Steve. So what are you liking on the board here, considering that we have 1 running back and 1 wide receiver? On the board here, we got Michael Pittman, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry. Speaking of Metcalf, Devonta Smith. I'm not one that like has to hammer again, like my first 3 picks of the same team. That makes me a little wary.
Especially if we're not getting the quarterback.
Especially with not getting the quarterback. Exactly. I love Pittman. Don't know that he'll still be there. If you wanted to do a dual hero running back, I don't hate that. Yeah. You know, those would probably be my favorite options, considering kind of what's on the board. Pittman, unfortunately, just went. We're up in 2, but we need 2 picks. So,
I like Metcalf. I like T. Higgins.
I just feel like Metcalf is still overpriced, just like I felt he was overpriced last year. But
yeah, I mean, it's we wish it was a better quarterback situation, of course, but it's just tough. There's not any
kind of hero backstacks that you want to work with, like a Lamar, something like that at this point. Like Lamar, Derrick Henry, you know, is something we could consider. thoughts on that? I mean, I know then we'll have to hammer receiver, but
I think I'd rather go receiver running back here and
I'm going to take Derrick Henry. So you really like T. Higgins, not concerned about getting, well, expects to remain with the Bengals. So
yeah,
you think this is good value for T. Higgins at pick 37?
Oh yeah, I mean, his his overall numbers, but he missed time. Burrow missed time. I mean, last year was a mess, but you put 17, and Burrow was also not healthy for first like 5-6 weeks of the season last year, and that offense as a whole was struggling during that time frame. So, yeah, we need Burrow to be healthy, and Burrow could be a great target for us as our first quarterback in a couple rounds. But yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase is still Jamar Chase, but T. Higgins has been one of the best secondary receivers in the league the last couple of years. So
yeah, he was on my what was it, BBM3? It was BBM3. I made the finals, and he was on that. So I should have give the guy a little more respect here. Yeah, thank you, Spread, for correcting me. We originally said it was 5 p.m. Friday, and then we changed it. It's 3 p.m. Friday. Friends of Best Ball, 3 p.m. Friday with Tyler and Spread. So last week we introduced Andrew and Justin to the channel. This week, 3 p.m. Friday, Friends of Best Ball. The other guys that are going to be doing a ton of drafts this summer, and they'll be joining me in the Underdog Streets at 3 p.m. Friday. Thank you, Spread. Help me out here. Woo. So, and then we're going to be having a lot of just different people in the best ball industry that will be my friends throughout the summer on Friday. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. Yeah, I agree with you on the Higgins pick, Steve. I will say that I wouldn't have hated a Lamar Henry pick, because to the point of, just soaking up that, like, all the rushing volume from the Ravens. Yeah. We know that Jackson does not vulture like a Josh Allen or Hurts situation. But I will say, I feel like then you're kind of ping-ponging that, like, when Lamar has those like ceiling games, whether it's one rushing touchdown and he's passing for 3 touchdowns and over 300 yards, and he has like a 30-some point game, you're really taking advantage of that. But then the other weeks you're getting Henry. I just love that team correlation. I'm a big fan of the quarterback running back. Don't mean to keep talking about the BBM4 winner, but one of his stacks was a quarterback, running back, no receiver, no tight end. It was Tua and Mostert, right, Steve?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so. No, and that is a good point. I just the expensiveness of it.
It's kind of reaching for Lamar, and the value is there on Higgins. So
yeah, and I just also feel like with us so tied to the Eagles already, tying to the Ravens, it's not a terrible idea, but I wouldn't mind having. Now we could get another Raven later if we want to still get another piece of that offense.
Sure.
But like I said, opening up Higgins to get a Burrow stack, I feel probably is better, gives a bit better optionality.
Okay. Yeah. And there was a little run on quarterbacks. Obviously, Hurts and Allen went in the 3rd round, just like to have the board up so you can kind of see, to get an idea in your future drafts, what's going. Obviously, every draft is its own beast, but there is the 4 quarterbacks that went in the 4th round here in Lamar, Mahomes, and CJ Stroud at pick 46. So we came around the 4-5 turn, and we'll be up at the 5-6 turn at pick 60 and 61. So what is Burrow's ADP? He's not going to come back to us. So do you say just take him with one of those and take that stack? I mean, I actually think he's going to start rising. They showed the camp videos already of him already throwing and everything, and I have to believe he's going to rise a little. Thoughts on taking him here with one of our 2 next picks?
I think it depends on what other value is sitting there. If just clear value elsewhere is sitting there, then I say we take it, and we can find other stacks.
Sure. Well, then let's look at other picks, because we are 5 away. So and again, we right now do have 2 running backs. We did a kind of a double hero running back build, so we have 2 and 2. So I really don't think, when I do that, I kind of just like Pat Crane did from the BBM3 winner, he hammered 2 running backs early and then got his next one in the 9th, 10th round. That's what I like to do. Again, and I wrote about that in the article. You can do any build you want, just do it the right way. And what I like to do is, if you're doing hero, but especially double hero, get it early, but then address the other positions. Make sure you're still getting that, wide receiver pacing. Make sure you're still getting your stacks and those things. So let's take a look at receivers, Steve. We've got George Pickens, we've got Amari Cooper, Jaden Reed was a hero last year. Marquise
all
Brown.
4 of those first
Yeah.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say, how would you rank those 4 with 3 picks away?
Boy, it's tough. It's tough to deny Cooper what he's done the last 2 years. Unfortunately, some of it is with Brissett and Flacco. So it's tough to
knock Flacco. He was slinging it last year.
But my point is,
we're up in 1. So thoughts
with,
here: Jaden Reed, Marquise Brown, Amari Cooper.
I say Reed and Brown.
I was gonna say I like Marquise Brown with all the trouble. Good Lord, Rice cannot stay out of trouble. So I like Marquise Brown.
The other reason I mentioned Reed is it opens up a love stack also.
That's true. So
the other thing we could do is take a tight end, Kyle Pitts, and target Cousins later.
Ooh, that's intriguing.
Okay, Brown and Pitts are very interesting.
Okay, so Cooper did go. He was one of the ones we had queued up. So you do not want to do the Burrow stack.
Do Burrow. I think there's too much value right here.
Because we're reaching. I mean, who knows? Maybe he comes back to us. So you want to do Brown and Pitts then?
Yeah. I mean, I love Jaden Reed, but the one thing I don't love about Green Bay is they just have 8 receivers. I mean, Christian Watson, Dubs. I mean, they were basically every guy was.
It's not a condensed target tree.
Yeah, and 2 tight ends. I mean. Yeah, I'm fine guessing some, but obviously Reed and Watson are the guys you're paying for. I definitely don't mind them if we then end up getting Love. But if we somehow miss on Love, then I like them a little bit less.
And that's I do kind of like being at the turns, either 1, 2, 11, 12. So you kind of can plan it out. But then the thing is, like in the situation of Burrow there, it's like you either got to reach and take it or take them or kind of let it pass. And so, sometimes you're either kind of reaching if you really want your stack or really want your guy. And so that can be tough sometimes. ADPs don't line up. And I don't think there's anything wrong with, I think, especially the further down the draft you go, if you, want to reach and get that stack or reach and get that guy that you're higher on, again, it's all based on your rankings and where you think, and if they're going to outperform that ADP. But I'm happy with our stacks, really like getting, Marquise Brown and Worthy shares right now. I don't have enough Worthy shares yet. Just keep kind of missing on that. But like getting that, especially given all the Rice news. And then like the Kyle Pitts that opens us up to a Cousins stack. So I think that's always good with these picks to just kind of set up, future stacks and everything. And, as you can see, even though we did a double hero running back build with hitting Saquon and Henry in the 2nd and 3rd round, we still kept that wide receiver pacing there. Like we have 3 receivers by round 5. And I have no doubt that we'll get 4 by round 8 and 5 by round 9 or 10. And that's kind of how I like to do it. So, so looking at the board, we took Brown and Pitts, and then it went Kamara, Ridley, Kenneth Walker, and then a little run on running backs, Jaden Reed, Roma Dunze, Brian Thomas Jr., and Addison. Who's your favorite rookie receiver to target at this point? Worthy did go the round before, speaking of him. I know you're going to be writing an article about that Friday as far as like rookies you want to target now because they're already going up. Worthy is already jumping up. We said, we got to get more shares. And it's understandable, obviously, especially with the Rice news. So Worthy was on our list, but he's already jumped up to further than we thought he would. So who are other receivers that rookie receivers that you're trying to grab now?
Yeah,
Steve?
so I mean, I do like Worthy, but I'm really high on definitely Marvin Harrison, a little lower on Malik Neighbors, just given the quarterback situation, Adunze, given he's competing with so many options. So I'm actually more fine with Brian Thomas. Yes, they have multiple receivers there, but there's a chance that he ends up the number 1 receiver there, and which is very intriguing, of course. Then you have guys like Worthy and Keon Coleman, 2 other guys who could be number 1 receivers on the team. And then finally, Lad McConkey, again, another rookie receiver. They signed DJ Shark or whatever, but he's not really ever been a threat for anyone.
Moving the needle.
So, we're talking about these rookie receivers who really have a chance to be top end receivers, and for their team. And those guys I just mentioned, all have good quarterbacks. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Herbert. So, you know, that's just really, really high upside potential there.
Yeah, Justin's in the chat. Again, he'll be doing shows with Andrew every Thursday night at 9. And so be sure to check out their show tomorrow night at 9. And says love that Keon Coleman value.
Yeah,
so,
that would have been a guy to target if he fell to us there.
Yeah. But yeah, those are basically everybody you mentioned. Did you mention Malachi Corley late?
I mean, there are definitely guys later like Corley, Burton, guys like that like later, Roman Wilson. It's just those guys don't have the chance to be the number one receiver on their team.
Right.
You know.
But I don't mind taking those guys for value. You know.
Oh, sure. I think they're great, like 6th, 7th receivers to round out your, help round out your receiving core for sure.
Speaking of, look who almost got back to us. We just missed it by 4. Joe Burrow in at pick 80. So let's queue up. We're at pick 84 and 85 in the 7th and 8th round. We have 2 running backs, 3 receivers, 1 tight end. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on Cousins later. But who, excuse me, who are you? I still think we don't need to focus on running back. We grabbed a kind of an early tight end. So let's look at these other receivers, Steve, or quarterbacks. So with 1 pick left, we have Deontay Johnson, Christian Watson, Curtis Samuel, Jameson Williams. I'm much higher, but then we're getting a little ahead of our skis there. These hero quarterbacks that we could backstack? We both are huge fans of Dak, Kyler.
I like both Dak and Kyler, and
Kyler Murray just went 1 pick before us. So what about, so we're right at Dak's ADP. Obviously you can, backstack Dak. So is that something you're interested in doing?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine doing that. And like I said, he led the league in passing touchdowns last year. And that was an offense that.
Okay, we're up again. We'll talk about Dak in 1 second. So I think now, what are your thoughts on Deontay Johnson?
I actually don't mind taking Ramondre Stevenson here and just having a third good running back. It's likely that he's the top guy there.
Usually I absolutely wait, but I think in this case, then we can really wait for our last 2. So, we're going to go ahead and take Ramondre at this value. We're getting him about a round later. He has ADP 75. We got him at 85. So right now, let's just take a break. Then you can talk about Dak. We got 1, 3, 3, 1 build through 8 rounds. So we've got Dak Prescott, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Ramondre Stevenson, AJ Brown, T. Higgins, Marquise Brown, Kyle Pitts. We're obviously looking to queue up that Atlanta stack. Obviously, the earlier Atlanta guys of Bijan Robinson and Drake London are, of course, gone. Who are the guys now to queue up for the Cowboys? And I'm working with one hand here because I haven't fixed my mic yet. Obviously we could see if Jake Ferguson
there, but it would have been a slight reach and we already had Pitt, so it just didn't make a ton of sense.
So I queued up, obviously the 2 Dallas running backs, Ferguson, if we want to just get 2 running backs and be done, and then Brandon Cooks. I know you don't mind, and then you don't mind Brandon. So why are you so, because we did this in our last draft together, why are you so high on Tolbert actually having a decent role this year? And obviously you're getting him at an insane value.
Yeah, so I mean, they let go of Michael Gallup, who was just kind of running wind sprints last year. He had a pretty good snap share, not a great target share. And, they would use these other receivers, some Tolbert, some Turpin, some couple of the other guys that they still had on the roster. But, they brought in a, late round receiver, Ryan Flournoy, but I mean, not a guy that I'm expecting to jump in. And you just saw it as the season wore on, Tolbert just kept earning more and more snaps, more and more targets. And he's clearly like the kind of the time for the third receiver. But he just offers some size, could be a red zone guy. Again, just one of the better passing offenses in the league. Last year was so condensed to Lamb and Ferguson, and not that it can't be again, but I just wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit more spread out. I mean, it's interesting. Brandon Cooks, he actually had the fewest targets that he's had in the last couple of years, and that's with missing some games the previous year with the Texans. And, obviously he was no longer the top receiver on the team, but he actually is a guy who I think could bounce higher this year. He had good touchdowns.
For not getting as many targets, he still had some decent touchdown equity, which that's what we're doing in Underdog is touchdown hunting. So I mean, definitely like Brandon Cooks. And you really think, to wrap up the Tolbert conversation, is you really think that Tolbert can step into that wide receiver 3 role for the Cowboys?
Yeah. And just the one final point is we got to keep in mind Cowboys for most of the year were not playing fourth quarters. Their starting offense was just off the field. You look at any number of games, particularly the first half of the season, before they got a couple of their tougher games. And even a game where they got beat early against the 49ers, their starting offense was off the field because they got blown out by the 49ers. So they just did not play the fourth quarter of games. And when they did, they were running the ball. That might not be the case this year. The defense lost a lot of pieces. Not that it still won't be good, but it wouldn't be surprised if it takes a slight step back, especially losing Dan Quinn, their defense coordinator. So, I think you just have a situation where Dak led the league in passing touchdowns, and we have a situation where they might need to actually throw the ball more.
Right. And they just throw at such a high volume, like as you said. Yeah. So, I mean, we're looking for these good offenses and high passing volume offenses when we're trying to target the passing game, and they check off both those boxes. So, but with that said, I mean, don't mind taking like a shot on Zeke. I know he's already rising. So, so anyways, we are coming around in the 9th, and, so I would like to address receiver here to get, because again, I do try to keep that pacing of 3x6, 4x8, 5x9 or 10. If we can get a couple receivers here, we will get that 5th receiver before things get to start to dry up and get a little uncomfortable. There just wasn't any receivers in that pocket. Let's look back here when we took Ramondre, because we took Dak and then Ramondre in round 8. When we took Ramondre, it was Deontay Johnson, Christian Watson, and to that point, no other receivers have gone.
2 have gone. So,
and for a reason. I really like Jameson Williams. I know I'm higher on him than you are, but I really do love Jameson Williams. I think the second receiver in that offense. I know probably Laporte is the second target in that offense, but I really like it. And he's perfect for best ball, just spike week guy. So I like him where he's going, and so I'm trying to take advantage of that. You can obviously then backstack him with Goff too, which I like that. So,
what are our pick numbers coming up?
So our picks are 108, 109. I just queued up a bunch of players just to keep an eye on. Let me just put them in order so they make sense in case we accidentally. But anyways, so receivers on the board: Curtis Samuel, Mike Williams, Cortland Sutton, Adonai Mitchell, Tyler Lockett.
So, I mean, I'm a little less on Samuel, but
he just
Mike Williams and Sutton and Lockett, I'd be fine with any of those.
Yep. Okay. So let me bring all those up to the top of our queue and see how this shakes out.
I was going to
say, how would you rank them?
Sutton. I'd probably say Sutton first.
Well, we're taking back to back. So do you want to do Sutton, Mike Williams if he's there?
Yeah, I mean, we're just probably what I'd go with.
But would you say, are you nervous about Cortland Sutton in a rookie quarterback offense at this pick? Obviously, last year he was money at his pick because Russ was just feeding him in the end zone. Are you nervous attached to a rookie quarterback?
No, because I think he's by far the top target on the team now. They got rid of Judy. They don't have a tight end that they can count on right now with Dulcich's injuries. So. I
mean, they have other receivers, but he's got to be the alpha. So.
Yeah, I mean, the rest are, Reynolds and young guys like Mims and Franklin.
And then I want to take Mike Williams because it allows us to set up a backstack for Rodgers if we want.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm assuming the guy, whoever took Garrett Wilson, is probably queuing up Rodgers, but we can too. So, because we have Dak Prescott kind of anchoring our quarterbacks, but this is a good time at this break to talk about the 3 quarterback thing that the 3 quarterback strategy that I was starting to mention. And again, check out fanspeak.com. 2 articles up, what I did wrong last year, and that I don't want to keep making the same mistake, what I did right last year, and what I want to do more of. And one of the things that I was really happy with is Steve and I both made a big macro strategy stand that we're going to do 3 quarterbacks and way more than the field. And obviously last year, I'm going to give you some mind-blowing stats here. Would you believe me if I told you that actually there were more quarterbacks that started in 2020 than 2023. So last year felt like the quarterback apocalypse, right? And maybe it's partially because some went out for longer periods of time earlier in the season, stuff like that, right? But in 2023, I believe 66 different quarterbacks made a start in the NFL. In 2022, 68 quarterbacks made a start, recorded a start. And in 2021, wasn't that much less, 62 quarterbacks. So people keep thinking that this isn't sticky. I think it's unfortunately stickier than we think. And yes, some of it is from inefficiencies in play and benching, but more of it's because of injuries. And so unfortunately, that is just the nature of the game. I wish we could turn injuries off too, but we can't. And so this is what's crazier. What that trickles down to, Steve, is last year in 23, only 9 teams, that's just a little over a fourth of the league, had their quarterback start all 17 games. In 2022, only one more, 10 teams had their quarterback start all 17 games. That means about 3/4 of the league, 2 years in a row, did not have their quarterback start all 17 games. And yes, some of that's inefficiencies or, weird and benchings, but a lot of that's injuries. And yes, some of those are short stints and such. But if you're only drafting 2, and then let's say the guy's out when your guy's on bye, then that's a problem. That could be a problem when you're trying to be top 2 in your pod. So those are things to consider, and especially drafting now. My final point to this, because I belabor the 3 quarterback thing a lot, but it is my biggest macro stand. It was last year and it's going to be this year, to be quite honest. And quite honestly, if you're drafting now, you really should think about 3 quarterback builds. If you don't want to listen to me from next Wednesday night on, I get it. What everybody needs to make their own stands, and we can all have different strategies and meet in the finals. I truly believe that. I truly believe that's what's the beautiful part about best ball, is you don't always have to play it the same way. But I will say this, during this next week, when we don't know the schedule, you're really at risk of having 2 guys on the same bye. And then if you factor an injury or 2 in there, you might have multiple weeks without a quarterback. I think now is for this week, because again, this isn't a time box tournament. We're going to be competing with people that are drafting now through early September. Any thoughts as we come around the corner, and then we can?
Yeah, well, I mean, just a couple, like one, the guy last year, 3 quarterbacks, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, Tua. That's not the order they drafted. Actually, he's been on the winning lineup the last 2 years. He was on the Koreans team. Yep. Too. So Mike McDaniel, good at getting you to win a lot of money on Underdog, I guess. But I mean, this is a perfect example. Like, we are now so excited to draft Jordan Love, but beginning of the year last year, he was not good. He was not good in real life. He was not good in fantasy. And it was Tua early, especially, and then CJ Stroud really came on kind of in the middle.
But then he had a couple games injured.
Well, he got injured right as the playoffs were starting.
Did he come back for semifinals or finals? I think
he was definitely back for the finals. I don't think he was back for the semifinals.
Right.
So
he was leaning on Love a lot at that point.
And Love literally carried him to win the $3 million.
Brought it home. Yeah.
He was not up on par with Lamar's points that week, but it was close enough. So that's the other thing, is whether it's due to, and even if they're not injured, the other thing you get is you get 3 options during these playoff weeks, especially in these pods, where even if it is 1 of 12, 1 of 16, 2 of 12, whatever it is, that's a singular week. You want to have 3 options, and you want to get as high end score as possible. And we saw it last year. I think it was in the semifinals. Baker Mayfield had a big week, or maybe it's the quarterfinals, one of the 2 playoff weeks. Baker had a huge monster week. Just absolutely carried.
Just take a pause for 1 second. We'll talk about it after these 2 picks and pick it up. We're up at 132, 133, and Brandon Cooks and Kirk Cousins fell to us. Yes, I know we could get some falling value on Zeke, but I would kind of rather stack Dak with Cooks. So I think this is, as long as J. Ray does not take Brandon Cooks or Kirk Cousins, this is pretty easy for us here. Would you agree with that? Okay, perfect. Love it when we agree. And don't have a little sibling argument there. Okay, so they took the other Dallas running back, Rico Dow. So we are going to take Brandon Cooks with our 11th round pick. And then we're taking and getting both of these guys right at ADP value, which is beautiful. So now we've got a 2, 3, 6, 1 build going, and don't mind that we only have 3 through 12 rounds, because our 3 are kind of absolute hero guys. So we've got Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Ramondre Stevenson. We got some value on AJ Brown, T. Higgins, Marquise Brown, Cortland Sutton, Mike Williams, Brandon Cooks, Kyle Pitts. So we've got the Dak stack, we've got the Cousins stack. We're looking for one more stack and probably looking at a 3-5-7-3. Though I will say, if we wanted to do like a 3, because we got Pitts, if we got another tight end soon, I wouldn't hate like a 3-5-8-2. If we wanted to do that, just depending on the tight end. Though again, bye weeks considered, we don't know. And then if you got the same bye week, then, that's a whole thing too. Yeah. But I worry less about that for the tight end than I do the quarterback position. But thoughts on that? And then you can wrap up your thoughts on the 3 quarterback build.
Yeah, no, I mean, to me, if you're choosing one to go later on, I'd choose tight end versus quarterback. Just tight end average score is much lower. And, you just really need to have a quarterback going through. You can get by with a handful of points from a tight end in a week, but you need 20 plus points from
Right. Absolutely. We got Tim in chat. He says, love Dak. Even when Dallas is up big, they keep let Dak throw in those TDs. And you are absolutely right. He can put up points in a hurry. We saw when they were down in the playoffs, he just came right back and was an absolute stud wild card weekend. So whether they're up big, down big, the passing volume is there. And, I remember one of my favorite bets last year, Steve, was taking shots on Dak for plus touchdowns at like super plus odds. Remember we were doing that a lot. And then sometimes we'd pair it with like Dak 4+ and CD 100. I know that's the betting stuff, but speaking of, check out our betting show in season, because Spread, who's in the chat, it'll be Spread, Tyler, and I. We bring on guests and we have a fun time breaking down the betting card for the week, and also finding some fun, anytime touchdowns and good like push parlays and that kind of stuff. So, but thank you for joining us, Tim, in the chat, and totally agree with your thoughts on Dak. So I like what we're building out here with our Dak and Cousins stack. And Steve, I'm getting shades of my BBM 3 finals team, because you know who 2 of my first 3 quarterbacks were.
Yeah, absolutely. So
it was now granted, it was Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins, in fairness. Yeah. So it's not like we got him with his alpha receiver, but that's okay. But I did take and Dak was built with the quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end. Yeah. At that time, of course, it was Dalton Schultz and Elliott. And then I took speaking of, I think Michael Gallup, late. Yeah. So, but yeah, maybe that's why I like that kind of build so much. So let's take a look at the board here, Steve. We made our picks of the 11th, 12th round. I like kind of our build structure that we're working with, considering that we got the 2 running backs really early, and then the value at Ramondre. We have 2 stacks already built, by the 12th round. Love that. So coming around in the 12th, 13th round. Oh, wow. They did Malachi Corey's going much earlier. And the roommate of Aaron Rodgers living in his guest room, they did a little Corley Rogers stack. So that I know I talked about Rodgers with Mike Williams. So that's out for our 3rd quarterback. That went a little earlier than anticipated. And then, we're getting a mix of kind of some backup running backs, and of course, some of the other receivers that aren't kind of the alpha, or some rookies like Leggett.
So who are you looking to take?
Oh yeah, we're coming right up, because then oh my God, the Ben Sinnott at 150 is unreal. Okay, well, way too early for Jalen Tolbert. So Steve, what do you like? We're up in 1 and 2 picks. So we got these are the running backs. I don't love that. Ray Davis is probably who I like the most. If you want to take a second tight end now, we've got I know we both like Hunter Henry a lot. That might be a bit early too. I feel like I like Henry much better than Otten. That would let us build a
okay.
Baker's.
We're up. We get
what do you
5
want?
Seconds. Go Henry. Go Henry.
Okay.
Yeah. He's definitely a better option. So
okay.
And we do already have Ramondre Stevenson, so it's getting 2 pieces of that New England offense. But that's not. I don't think that's terrible. I think it's
okay. What are you? Sorry, we'll talk about that in 1 second. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What do you want to do?
Roman Wilson is who I'd take here.
Oh, good call. Love the Roman Wilson pick. I want to get more shares of him. He and Polk and Roman Wilson in this range. Corley too, but he's been going earlier. Roman, and it's going to time out. So I got Roman Wilson queued. So Roman Wilson, Corley, Polk, these are guys that are going later and are starting to already rise up the board. So I'm glad we got a share of Roman Wilson. And also, if we wanted to build, I know people don't always even take them and they take Fields, but if we wanted to build a late Russ Wilson stack, that leaves optionality for that.
I don't mind that. You know, I think the Steelers offense is going to be better than people give him credit for. I mean, sure, I think Fields will come in for some trick plays, steal some rushing touchdowns, but not that those would have been Russ's anyways. It's likely stealing from Harris or what's the name?
So before we go back over to the board, let's kind of strategize what we want to do with our last couple of picks. So we have a 2-3-7-2. So we already have 7 receivers that we really, really like. We want to do one more quarterback stack. I think we do need to start, maybe go back-to-back running backs before it gets super thin, unless there's a really late round flyer that you like. So it will be up at pick in the 15th. So that was our Hunter Henry is our second tight end. Roman Wilson as our 7th receiver was 13th, 14th. In the 15th and 16th round, we'll be up at 180, 181, Steve. And then we'll have 2 picks after that. So my thought is try to go, unless we see extreme value, go 2 running backs here, unless we see another quarterback stack that stands out to us. Now, let's talk that through super quick. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers went. We talked about Mike Williams. We just talked about, we could do, a Bo Nix stack. We could do we believe that Russell Wilson is going to be the starter. We could do a Russell Wilson stack. We could do, if you wanted to go Drake May, I think that's very risky, but you could do a Drake May stack, and especially having Ramondre and Hunter Henry. Now that makes me a little more nervous now, not knowing at all like the intention of when he could start, but I'm open to it. So we kind of have 3 guys, 2 of them unfortunately rookies. So I'll go ahead and just cue the guys that we could stack. And then we can also look at guys that you can even backstack with another tight end. There's a lot of good. I know Justin mentioned, thank you. I know Justin in our show that we did last Friday mentioned that some of the late like backstacks you can do, you can do like Gardner Minshew and let's see. I just lost his name. Michael Mayer, super late. You could do Jatavion Sanders, who I think could be this year's Sam Laporta with a Bryce Young, stuff like that. So you can still do some, late stacks like that. So I'm going to queue up those 4 quarterbacks just as our 4th potential option, Steve.
What about Nix?
Oh, thank you. Where's he? Okay, he's right ahead of Wilson. Okay, so in order. Okay, so in order, I have Drake May, Bryce Young, Bo Nix, Russell Wilson, Gardner Minshew to get one more stack. Now, of course, in the issue of Bryce Young and Gardner Minshew would be looking to backstack with one of the tight ends. We already have stacks built for May, Nix, Russell Wilson, as we have a little time to talk about it. But actually, let's queue up some running backs that we like too, just to have that queued up. And then we can talk about which QB stacks we like the best. So up ahead of us, and again, we're not up for, 11 more picks. We got Chuba Hubbard, Antonio Gibson, Bucky Irving, Jaleel McLaughlin, Khalil Herbert, Roshan Johnson, Keaton Mitchell, Tyron Tracy, Dameon Pierce. I like Pierce as like a really late round guy, hoping, he just has a role this year. That's better, but thoughts on running back?
Well, I mean, if he slides there, Hubbard, I know everyone's excited about Jonathan Brooks, but he's coming back from major injury.
They added another running back, didn't they?
I mean, they still have Miles Sanders. There's a lot of thought that they would cut him, but they kept
Rashad Penny. That's who it was. I mean, nobody good, but I'm saying, okay, so Hubbard, who else do you want to queue?
I mean, Bucky Irving probably is the number 2 back in Tampa. Khalil Herbert's probably number 2 back in Chicago, which could be a pretty decent offense. He is going to compete with Roshan, but he'll probably give it Herbert. Keaton Mitchell's fine.
And then I'm queuing Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, I mean, super late. I do like guys like Estime. I like.
Do you think he's going to be the number 2 in Denver?
I think he's definitely going to be the touchdown guy in Denver.
Oh, okay. So he's like a big bruiser.
Yeah.
So is Braylon Allen too, right? But I
yeah,
mean,
though
he's competing
he's competing with Breece Hall.
Breece Hall. Yeah.
With,
Any other really late?
Well,
late
the other
ones?
one would be that Isaiah Guerrero.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I know they
Just
like Elijah Mitchell, but he just can't stay healthy. And they took I think it was a 4th round pick on Guerrero, so they're not going to mess around with running back.
Okay, so I queued up a bunch of quarterbacks. I queued up a bunch of running backs because those are kind of the focus of what we need. We're at 180, 181, as we can see coming around here at the 14-15 turn. Jermaine Burton, who we've gotten a couple of times, and some Burrow stacks, and another rookie we don't mind. And then the little run on quarterbacks here in Deshaun Watson, JJ McCarthy. I'm guessing they have a Vikings stack, Derek Carr, Geno Smith. Go ahead.
Just curious, can you look at tight end real quick? I just want to see, because we could do, if Will Levis is still there, I think we could do Levis and Chigakonkwo.
That's true. That's another back. Yep, he is. That's another back stack tight end.
I absolutely love Will Levis.
Really? I know you've said that you really like him to have like another, like, take that step this year, and he just went. Okay, well, that was another one. I know Justin talked about, like, late round kind of stacks you can do, and Will Levis is another one that you could do. So what do you want to do here with one pick away? Do you want to go Drake May? Do you want to build out one of these other stacks?
I wouldn't do Drake May.
You would or wouldn't?
I wouldn't.
Okay. Okay, so Luke McCaffrey just went. Do you want to take a quarterback and build out the tight end, or do you? Well, first of all, we could take a running back.
We double up running back here.
Okay, honestly. So and then just grab a late round tight. Okay, so who do you like the best? I'm just gonna, in case I have
go Bucky Irving. You know, he's probably the number 2 there behind Rashard White.
Okay,
that could be a pretty decent offense. So
okay, and then I like Keaton Mitchell. Actually, this is one of my favorite ones to do. Derrick Henry, Keaton Mitchell. You're getting the Thunder Lightning. We talked about it on our show. What are your thoughts?
I'm good with that. Like,
okay,
I like it in these types of builds. I don't like it if say we had gone Lamar, because then I feel like you're just asking for a failure.
Yeah,
one of these guys to be a failure. So
right. I think in this situation, Baltimore just. Again, Lamar doesn't vulture, and Baltimore leans on the run more than people realize. And this is a Thunder Lightning situation. We talked about it on the show with Justin and Andrew on the Friends of Best Ball on Friday about which teams are the good teams to handcuff. And there are teams that I don't really like, and there's teams I don't do. And I think I do like it better if you have like 6 running backs, but I think because we have such hero running backs, we started with Barkley, Henry, Ramondre. Because we have such hero running backs, I don't mind that we handcuffed in a likely 5 running back build. And because, again, this is the Thunder Lightning situation of Baltimore, and you're soaking up all that running back equity. So let's look at the chat really quick, and then we can talk about kind of our last 2 points. Tim liked the calls on Pierce and Hubbard. So we didn't end up taking either, but I think both were in consideration.
Hubbard went off the board. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Before us. And so I think that's good to just think that through sometimes, because we may not have taken him in this draft, but then it kind of keeps in mind for future drafts. So again, we have a 2-5-7-2, likely building a 3-5-7-3, and going to go ahead and get a quarterback tight end with our last 2 picks. While we have a still 15 pick break, we have Dak, Kirk Cousins, both stacked, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Ramondre Stevenson, Bucky Irving, Keaton Mitchell, A.J. Brown, T. Higgins, Marquise Brown, Cortland Sutton, Mike Williams, Brandon Cooks, Roman Wilson, Kyle Pitts, and Hunter Henry. So with that said, Steve, we're looking at I'd say, well, we didn't take Will Levis, but Chig is still queued. I was going to queue Jatavion Sanders and Michael Mayer if you did do those back stacks with Gardner Minshew or Bryce Young, or we could take Bo Nix or Russell Wilson, depending who's there, because we already have stacking partners with them in Cortland Sutton and Roman Wilson, respectively. So who would be your preference in quarterback? Now, I don't know who's going to make it back to us. I don't think Bryce Young will make it back to us, but who would be, and let's take a look at the board. But of those 4 quarterbacks, kind of rank them of your preference of getting as your quarterback 3 on this team.
Yeah. So I actually am fine with taking Bryce Young. I took him punching the big board. Not only do they have Adam Thielen, who was like a top 15 receiver last year in fantasy, at least top 20, I know. They bring in Deontay Johnson, Xavier Legette, and then Jatavian Sanders, like mentioned. So, and not to mention Jonathan Brooks. I mean, this offense should just be much better with Dave Canales as the new coach. We saw the wonders that he did for Geno. We saw what he did with Baker last year. I think they got the exact right coach, so I have no problem taking Bryce Young. But I'm fine with Bo Nix. I think the job is his. He's competing against Jared Stidham and Zach Wilson. Not going to get concerned there. And Nix offers some rushing upside. Their weapons. We likely have the number 1 receiver there. I think who's going to get peppered with targets. So, could get a couple sneaky games. And just mentioned Will Levis last year. He didn't start obviously all year, but we saw down the stretch he had some big games, and the only weapons he had were DeAndre Hopkins and Lo Chigakonku and Derrick Henry. So I mean, Bo Nix is a similar type, bigger quarterback, not as big as an arm, but can run some, can definitely dice up some defenses. So,
do you like Bo Nix better than Russell Wilson in this situation?
I definitely like the fact that we have him paired with his number 1 receiver in Cortland Sutton. I mean, I like Roman Wilson, but could be the number 2 receiver who's number 3 option behind, like if Pat Fryme takes a big role. So I just kind of like that, and I think Nix obviously offers a little bit more rushing upside. Could get a more upside for a spike week. Russ is probably better for a good floor play.
Well, his competitor just went ahead of us. It went Daniel Jones, Bryce Young, Justin Fields. I think Russell Wilson wins and keeps the job under Tomlin and Arthur Smith. And I was going to actually try to sell you on the Bryce Young, Jatavian Sanders, because I'm really loving the Jatavian Sanders thing. But I'm going to go with you on the Nix thing, Steve, since we, like you said, have his alpha. Yeah. So Bo Nix is our pick. We already have the stack built out, so I'm going to get rid of the other quarterbacks. And then let's focus on tight end. Chigakonku is the top 1 on the board, and then there is Jatavian Sanders, Michael Mayer. This is our last pick. So I assume you want to go a 3rd tight end.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
unless there's anything else on the board.
We could further stack Tolbert. We could further stack with Estime just to give another running back.
6 seconds. I'll let you pick
options, but I like Chig. I like Chigakonku. I think that Tennessee offense. This is why I like Will Levis. There's a lot of weapons now. Just brought in Tyler Boyd, but not only that, I like them going with Brian Callahan. As the coach. Bengals offense coordinator. Bengals have had a pretty good offense, fantasy offense the last couple of years. So yeah, I'm really on board with that offense in general. And Okonkwo, we've seen with poor quarterback play in recent years, has actually had a couple decent spike weeks. And I just think passing volume is going to be higher with no Derrick Henry. They'll probably split more, Pollard and Spears. But I just don't think they're going to be able to rely on the run as much. They're going to need to throw the ball a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with all that. And, I kind of still like doing a 3-5-7-3 because, as you can see, again, we did like the double hero running back build and then we kind of handcuffed and got all of the Ravens equity. So I feel really comfortable with our running backs and then our 7 receivers. We still, I think, got 5 by 10 and then really got some other solid ones later in Brandon Cooks and Roman Wilson. It's not like we were waiting really late. So I think this is really balanced 3-5-7-3. And of course, all 3 quarterbacks are stacked. So yeah, I like the call of Chigakonku with the last pick as well. So so that kind of rounds it out for us. Let's see how the draft finishes up and then we can go through the team once more and get final thoughts. Steve, but any other thoughts as the draft's finishing?
Well, one thing I'll say, I know we're going to do final thoughts and this can just be the start of it as the draft's finishing up, but I really like what we did at the top. our early picks were really focused on top tier offenses. Eagles, Ravens.
And
And
even though we didn't get the quarterback, it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And Bengals, etc. And we still got a top tier quarterback stack in Dak Prescott. And it's Brandon Cooks, probably the third option on the team, but I have no problem with that. I also like our second quarterback stack, Cousins with Kyle Pitts. Atlanta obviously has not been a top tier offense of late, but every reason to believe that it should with some new coaching and of course adding Kirk Cousins there to those top tier weapons that they've been adding the last few years. So I really like that. Sure, we took some pieces from weaker offense, a couple New England, Denver, obviously with our third stack, but just in general, we focus on top tier offenses. These are the offenses that are going to score touchdowns, the most touchdowns, which is key in Underdog, of course, and then they're going to get just a ton of yards. So that's how we score fantasy points.
Absolutely. I think you kind of summarized it perfectly, but just to read it one more time, it was a 3-5-7-3 build from the 12th spot. I was really hoping for the Garrett Wilson to fall there. I have got to start getting some like 10 through 12 so I can get my Garrett Wilson shares. I'm just wanting so much of him this year with Rodgers back, but we did the 3-5-7-3 and we started AJ Brown, Saquon Barkley. But again, to read our full lineup, Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Bo Nix, all stacked. Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Ramondre Stevenson, Bucky Irving, Keaton Mitchell, AJ Brown, T. Higgins, Marquise Brown, Cortland Sutton, Mike Williams, Brandon Cooks, Roman Wilson, and then tight ends, Kyle Pitts, Hunter Henry, Chig Okonkwo. Again, I think we could have done 2 tight ends if we wanted to, but there was outside maybe Demarcus Robinson, there wasn't anything that like totally sold me, and I like getting that, especially not knowing the bye weeks and everything. So I like the balance build of 3-5-7-3. I like that all the quarterbacks are stacked very nicely, and I like that there's team correlation outside of the ones from good offenses. Like you said, I'm very happy to stack, like you said, the Dallas and Atlanta offense, but then we have, like you said, AJ Brown, Saquon Barkley, we have Derrick Henry, Keaton Mitchell. Just getting some of this other team correlation is something. I know we have multiple Patriots as well that might not be as top of an offense, but these are guys that are the touchdown guys of the team. Ramondre Stevenson and Hunter Henry. Talk about touchdown market. These are the guys that, when you're looking at, each game, these are the guys that are going to be like plus 100, plus 150 to score touchdowns. So, you got to kind of think of that as you're doing underdog drafts. And I think that's why I do better at underdog than DraftKings and the PPR is you just have to think of that touchdown mindset, that touchdown hunting mindset. And then I always think about like, well, what would their number be on a Sunday morning to bet their anytime touchdown? And if it's probably like minus 110 to, plus 160, then that's pretty good. Those were the guys like Mike Evans, Cortland Sutton last year that were just those like touchdown hunters, last year. Yeah. And if you can find that throughout the draft, I think that's really key. So, Tim said he appreciated our Stevenson and Henry picks. So thank you. Like that. And I'm really happy with it, Steve. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Just one thing. Yeah. I mean, people will look at New England and say, oh, rough offense, and sure, in general compared to some of the top offenses, but this offense should be clearly better, and that's what was holding Henry back. That was what was holding Stevenson back, and of course the injury to Stevenson and even Henry very late. But just their horrendous quarterback play. Jacoby Brissett obviously is an upgrade over that. I do believe
he's a great stopgap quarterback. He's great.
I think Drake May is going to be better than Mac Jones and what else they were trying out there last year. So, I think we saw Henry he was tight end 1, I think week 1 last year. And he had he had a couple games later in the season where he put up some big numbers. So yeah, that offense was ever semi-efficient. They actually produced. It was just, unfortunately, they weren't that too often. So.
Yeah. And again, I think those are the guys soaking it up.
Exactly.
I really think we got a good combination of guys like Roman Wilson, guys that might be rising up the board, stacking good offenses, just good correlation and good value. I think it was a good combination of all the things you want to do, right? Doing a right build, even though you're doing a different build. People love the 0 RB. This time of year, I like the hero RB and even a double hero RB, getting 2 in the first 3 rounds, but then do it correctly. We're not going to keep hammering running back throughout the draft. We did get Stevenson a little earlier than I thought, but there was just there was like a round value there. And then we waited on the last 2. So just do it in the right way. As we get out of here, be sure, if you are not on Underdog yet, to use code FANSPEAK for 100% deposit bonus up to $100. And, of course, like this episode on your way out. We thank you so much for joining us for a lunchtime draft. We'll be doing this every Wednesday around lunchtime. But again, keep in mind our live draft schedule. You've got Tuesdays at 4 with Tyler and Spread DraftKings, our lunchtime draft Wednesdays here, Thursday evenings with Andrew and Justin around 9, and then Friends of Best Ball with me on Fridays. Time depending on who my friends will be this week is Tyler and Spread from the channel at 3 p.m. So we really appreciate you guys joining us. Again, check out all our content both on fanspeak.com here and the Fanspeak Network. Good luck in your drafts. For Steve, I'm Meg, and we will see you next time.